Hi, and welcome to another terribly fun films review. I'm your host, Bobby, and today was not on the docket at all. My initial schedule for the rest of this year was to finish off the Seeking Asylum reviews and jump straight into the long-delayed Kaiju Stomp stuff. Getting those roughly with the equal amount of videos should have taken me straight through the end of the year. Then I'm working on a really big project a friend asked me to do a while ago. I was going to debut that somewhere between January and February of next year in 3 installments, and then we get back into our regular routine with, of course, the modern movie rants and the Nerd Show and Tell just happening whenever those happen. But I stumbled across this low-budget horror film in Walmart. It was $10. It sounded cool, so I bought it. And have seen exactly zero, nada, yet, none, actual proper reviews for the film. It does have some Amazon user reviews, but that's all I've seen. So, I watched it and decided to talk about it. That movie is, of course, the Linda Vista Project. You already knew that by the title of this video. Linda Vista is a real hospital in Los Angeles. It started off as the Santa Fe Railroad's hospital, built by the railroad company for its employees, and was also known, or later became known, as the Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital, before being known as the Linda Vista Hospital. And then it was abandoned in the mid-80s or 90s, I forget when, and after it's been abandoned, it has not only been reportedly a site for a lot of hauntings and paranormal investigations and that kind of thing. It has also been utilized in a ton of movie and TV productions, including Project Metal Beast and The Frickin' Scribbler, which, if you know me, know I am in love with that movie. Those also filmed there. So, with that surprisingly long introduction out the way, let's see if Linda Vista Project can deliver the scares. The story sees paranormal investigator Emily Strain and her co-worker Cassie and Chase doing paranormal investigation stuff. The movie starts off with them going to a house of this husband and wife team whose child recently died, and they fear that she's in agony. And so they come in, they set up their equipment, they record the EVP stuff, that sort of thing. Then, of course, it's a movie, so it's a ghost. And we see how the team interacts with it. We see how the team interacts with themselves, how they interact with clients. It's a pretty solid setup. But that's just kind of the setup to get us into the world. The majority of the movie is at the Linda Vista Hospital, in which, long since abandoned, they have set up several cameras throughout various floors of the hospital to do an ongoing investigation of the reported hauntings and creepiness, yada yada, that are going on there. But the hospital has since been bought by new owners, and they plan to renovate it inside and out and reopen it as a senior citizens home. All of that is true, by the way. There are several reported cases of hauntings going on at Linda Vista, and it was in fact bought out and reopened in 2012 or 13 as an old person's home. How crazy is that? But you know how real life something is has no bearing on whether it's a good movie, so I'll move on from there. So to sort of facilitate the transition and make sure that the paranormal investigation team gets out of there on time, the new owners send a guy named Dawson as their liaison to make sure that this crew gets all their cameras out, gets all their equipment out, all that stuff. Of course, he gets gets involved in the ghostly shenanigans as well. And that's where I'll leave it, because I really don't want to spoil too much. Directed and co-written by John Rogers, along with Moa Natoa and Edward Kana. The movie strikes a nice balance between the personal and dramatic side of things and the ghostly, ethereal hauntings. There's a scene after the aforementioned child ghost, as that's kind of a prologue, if you will, in which Cassie and Emily are talking, and they have this fun little banter, and they feel believable as friends, and that they've been doing this a long time, they know each other's strengths and weaknesses. It works in that regard. That is in due part, of course, to the solid casting, but also due to just the way the writing flows in and out, and the dialogue there sounds natural, believable in the situation. It works. Once everything gets kind of amped up and the real craziness and meat of the story begins, they still strike a nice tone. Of course, after a while, the characterizations are done, and it's much more about survival and fighting back against the ghosts, that kind of a thing. But I still think they make everything have weight and have an impact on the characters. I think they do a really good job there, especially with anything. I won't give it away, but it's very clear that when the filmmakers set out to write and direct this film and put it into production and get it out there, they had a definite, it has to end this way. It's the only way it could end type of idea in mind, and it really pays off. The ending is great. So the writing has a nice balance to itself, and I think the directing has the same. While there's only maybe one or two shots that really are visual standouts, he does strike a nice balance in terms of the realism and the scares, and there's a great sense of atmosphere permeating the entire hospital scenes. And I think that helps add to the realism, so we buy in to how scared our characters are. We buy in to the hauntings because it feels genuine, it feels real, and that's an important thing to have, really. As the leader of the paranormal investigation team, Emily Strand, we have Whitney Anderson, who does a really good job. She has to take on the bulk of the really dramatic and traumatic stuff with the ghosts on by herself, especially in the later half of the movie, and I think she sells it well. There are times really early on in her interactions with the husband and wife where she seems like she's saying her lines very hurriedly, but once she's outside of that setting and just hanging out with Chase and Cassie and that kind of thing, things sort of smooth out, and they even make reference to that in the dialogue about how she's sort of short with their clients. So I think that was an intentional thing there. Maybe if we saw them interacting with at least one more client, that would have paid off better. But overall, she does a really good job. As Cassie, we have Cara Louise, who brings a really great sense of loyalty and a nice level-headedness to the role. Once again, she and Emily do feel like real friends, and that is because the chemistry these two actresses have. But Cara also gets to sort of be the one to speak frankly about what's going on, because sometimes Emily gets overwhelmed, or she keeps having these sort of visions where she just like goes in a trance. So Cara's kind of the level-headed one in that, and I think she is very believable there. As the third main member of this ghost hunting troupe. Chase Paul Beats is a little bland. I hesitate to say he's bad because I don't recall any of his line readings necessarily being unbelievable or sounding forced or unnatural, but he doesn't bring much to the role to make him stand out the way the other two do. He's there, he's alright, but he never jumps off the screen, if that makes sense. The sad part about all of that is that the other main character in Dawson, is played by Christopher Allen Nelson, is great. He gives my favorite performance by far in this film. He's so much fun. Sequence where he first comes to the hospital to greet them and kind of tell them, you have this long to get out. Do you need anything to help? You know, kind of facilitate things where they're like, no, please let us keep investigating. Here's what we have. They show him some footage, and the way he says, that's some really good special effects, and is completely unconvinced by that video footage that it's actually ghosts and such, is really great. There are two more characters who are in it briefly but are fairly important to the role. That is Officer Hamilton, played by Mike Jerome Putnam, and Lacey, played by Carolyn Mann. The officer is the security guard who, patrols the premise of the abandoned building, and he's a lot of fun. Small role, but he's a very likable guy in his small role, and he's very. You see him, you just kind of I want you to be my buddy. He's that kind of a guy, and that easygoing charm really helps him well, because just due to the way the plot's written, he's not in it a ton, but you instantly get it. Girl is a bit of an interesting case. I think the actress, Caroline Mann, does a really good job. It's hard to discuss without giving things away, so I won't, but she's good. Helping with that sense of atmosphere and dread is the cinematography by Peter Lugo. I think it adds a great starkness to the film in the later half. There's a sequence where they're exploring things, and Dawson's getting kind of creeped out. So he's like, hey, take me back. I don't want to be here anymore. I only came because you heard something, basically. Not verbatim, but I'm just trying to get the idea of the scene across. So like, okay. They're in a stairwell. They try to open the doors. Does not open. The way it's shot makes it seem not just claustrophobic, because again, you're just had this group of people staring, you can't really go to any places, but makes it seem almost like there's something watching them. There's just something on the other side that's going to reach out and grab them at any moment, and you're just waiting for it. This is also helped by the editing by Frank Mora Jr. and Justin Ballou, in that they find a really good rhythm. So there's a sequence where Emily is hiding from the main antagonist ghost, if you will. It's an elemental thing. There's a lot going on in this film with the sort of different kinds of ghosts, what the different kind of ghosts want, how to defeat them, if you should. But the big antagonist ghost is really interesting. But there's a scene where she's hiding in a particular room, and she's hiding behind like a vanity, basically, with a giant mirror on it. And the editing between her hiding there and it looking for her in the room, and this little shrine being covered up, it's really good. And again, it helps with that intensity. It helps with keeping the audience engaged. so you don't really get bored. I recently got to see my first Blair Witch movie in theaters. By which I mean, I was too young to see the Blair Witch Project or Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 in theaters. So now that the new movie's out, I was super excited, super pumped. I love the Blair Witch film. And for some reason, the sound design in that film is loud. All the effects, everything. You stepping on a twig, the wind howling, you running, a tree falling down, you setting up a tent, you just breathing. Everything is jacked up to 12, not even 11. This goes past Spinal Tap's amp stupidity of loudness. This is just absurdly loud for no reason. And it makes every single scene in that movie obnoxious. Not creepy, obnoxious. Here, in this low budget, I would be surprised if this movie had a budget more than $30,000. Maybe 40, but between that range is my best guess. It shocks me that a movie that has a budget this low, compared to a movie that has a budget in the millions, has so much better sound design. Such better usage of sound design. That's not to say there aren't loud moments. Of course there are. But they're where the creepy comes from. Because the movie's quiet, and then they'll hear something, or think they'll hear something. They'll go off in that direction, and then BAM! Something big will happen. And that difference, that waiting, and then BAM! That's what makes a horror movie. And I'm shocked at how well this utilizes that. This has some really cool sound design. Really good stuff. That is all thanks to Catherine Korniloff, Richard B. Lamore, and Avio Mardikan. Please tell me I'm pronouncing all those right. Helping immensely with that is the score, and I don't know who did it. I can't find that information online, so please, if you are involved in this production, let me know who did the score so I can give that person proper credit. As the score, very subtle, it's never overpowering, but it's also interesting and intense enough to be truly engaging. There's a great sequence where Emily finds Dawson after they're separated, and he's pretty beat to hell. And just when she comes down around and sees of the way the score plays that up, and the way it helps the mood, and the way it's like, oh, you found him, but so it's still it's a slightly victorious, but also has a sense of underlying dread going with it because he is so badly wounded. It's a really solid score, and I think objectively speaking is probably the single best aspect of the film. That is not to say the film's entirely perfect. As you heard me state, Paul Dietz is only okay. Acting wise, it does have a few other problems. It does take a while for the scares to start happening, and that husband and wife prologue I've referenced, it's not that scary. It's pretty cool looking. They do some cool effects with scratches on a mirror, but it's not that creepy. So I would say it's about halfway through the movie for the scares to start happening, and I could see somebody getting a little bit bored. I was invested with the characters, so I wasn't, but I could understand that happening for somebody else. However, I would say the biggest single issue with the film is the CGI. Again, very low budget, so I'm okay with the fact that the spirits don't totally look as if they're properly integrated to the scene. There's a sequence where our main character sees some spirits flying down a hallway, and it's clear it's a CGI effect, that kind of thing. And that's not what I'm complaining about. I don't like their design. They're just these little glowing orbs with some circular glowy things going around them. So like imagine a big bright dot that's in this, a circular shape, and then kind of clear, and then a very faint outer bright ring, if that makes sense. When it travels, it leaves a tiny trail. It's a bit unintentionally goofy, if you ask me. And it does sort of undercut the reality that the movie tries so hard to build. But it doesn't completely take you out. It's not a long sequence, and they're only seen a few times throughout the film. Because really, the thing we see the most is the elemental antagonist you've heard me describe earlier, and it's fantastic. There's an actor in a suit, and then they put all this weird black kind of ashy tar stuff surrounding him. It's like a living tar / ash thing, and it's moving and stuff, so even when he's standing still, this stuff is still moving off of him, and it's CGI. And again, low budget, so not totally convincing, but I really like its design. I think it looks cool and interesting, and there's some stuff that involves a fire later on, and this entity that's really solid and interesting in terms of its execution, and pretty different than what I would have expected, and that is a really good thing. So while the Linda Vista Project has a few flaws, I believe they are outweighed greatly by the ambition of the project and by how much the filmmakers were able to get done on such a low budget, and just the likability of the cast. They are a very likable, interesting group. The film does not... Horror fans lately have been happily spoiled by the likes of The Conjuring 2, Don't Breathe, Lights Out. Not saying all these are flawless, but they're all different. They're all trying interesting things, and they're all well received enough for being fairly original, that kind of thing. To where it kind of feels like the direct-to-DVD route of horror films lately has been the more generic, bland offerings. If you look at American Conjuring, The Amityville Terror, these films feel interchangeable. So there's something to be said for something that feels like such a breath of fresh air, and something that remains creepy for most of its runtime. Linda Vista Project is a damn fun ride, and I recommend you check it out. It's available at Walmart for $10 on DVD. You can stream it on Amazon. I'm not sure how much that's going to cost. It's probably on Google Play or iTunes, that sort of thing. So definitely watch it. It's a lot of fun. As always, I've been your host, Bobby. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.